Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Alumni Career Connections talk with Emily Blunnie. We're very excited to have her. She's a 2019 grad. Alumni Career Connections is put on by the Alumni Office here at Binghamton and also the Fleischman Center. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Alumni Career Connections, we invite alumni back to campus to tell us a little bit about their story from graduation to where they are now, and also share maybe some tips, career tips or what have you. And then we'll open it up to questions. So Gregory, I hope you have a few for Emily. You can ask her anything.
I definitely do.
Okay, great. So I will turn it over. Take it away, Emily.
Okay, hi, my name is Emily Blunnie. I am a 2019 graduate from Binghamton University. I'm currently a cardiothoracic ICU nurse at North Shore University Hospital in Manhasset on Long Island. I guess I'll start with where I started to get to where I am now. While I was in Binghamton, I was a dual degree student, so I was in the psychology program as well as the nursing program. So I graduated with a degree in psychology as well as a degree in nursing. I had a few things that I did while I was at Binghamton. I started in the alumni office as a student assistant, and then I started working for the admissions office as an administrative supervisor for the Binghamton University Student Ambassador Program. And I also was a resident assistant in Dickinson Community. So I was very busy while I was at Binghamton, you know, between my coursework and the nursing program and all the things that I participated on campus. I was always going. So while I was in Binghamton, my junior year, I believe it was, I went to the Golden Ticket Nursing Showcase that Northwell Health held. I know the nursing program had gotten a few tickets offered to them, and we were all, you know, put in a raffle, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to go. So I attended that program, and then in between my junior and senior year, I had applied to a nursing externship that basically allowed me to work in the hospital that I currently work in, not in the cardiothoracic ICU. However, I was in labor and delivery, so completely different experience, but it was very meaningful, to say the least. I got to see really what nurses do on a day-to-day basis and really get an idea of what my career would look like. So after that externship, obviously I had another year of school. I had applied for my capstone basically through Northwell to work in the CTU. And I was very excited that I was able to do that and do most of my classes that I had to finish my senior year through a blended program. So every few weeks I would go to Binghamton and I would, you know, take exams, go to lectures on campus, but for the most part, I was online doing my coursework and doing my capstone in the unit that I currently work in. After my capstone, I applied for the William Randolph Hearst Critical Care Fellowship, and I got a job in the CTU, which is where I work now. Completed the fellowship and have been working there since. So it's been a long road, but I'm happy to be where I am now, and I'm still growing every day as a nurse, and it's been very challenging, but a great experience nonetheless. So that's kind of like my introduction, I guess.
Awesome. Alyssa, Greg, do you have any questions for Emily?
I actually do. I'm trying to apply to Northwell too. I'm from the city. I'm on Staten Island, and I'm applying around to Lenox Hill and all that stuff. But I want to get into the ER, but I was just wondering what the fellowship interview was like.
So the fellowship interview for me was a little bit different, I believe, because I did my externship through Northwell. And so when I went for the fellowship program, I was interviewing with the same person that I had interviewed with for the externship. But, they ask you pretty basic interview questions, why do you want to be a nurse? Why do you want to work in this specific unit? What do you have to offer, the unit? They might ask you a few clinical questions or questions in regards to like difficult situations that you've been in and how you handled them. All pretty typical interview questions, I would say.
Okay.
So how did you go about studying for the NCLEX? Like, when did you start? How did that whole process go for you?
Sure. So after I graduated, I started studying for the NCLEX. I wanted to start the fellowship in July. It starts at the end of July for Northwell. So I had a goal of taking my NCLEX at the end of June, early July. So I studied probably for about a month. And what I used was UWorld. That's what I found most valuable. I did questions every day. I would review the explanations basically of each question, not only the ones I got wrong, but the ones I got right also, because you want to understand really like what their reasoning was for the right answer and how you could apply that to other questions that they might ask you. But that was what I did for the NCLEX, and I studied every day, probably like 3 to 4 hours for a month. And then I took it and I was able to pass, which was a blessing.
When did you get to take it?
I believe I took it like mid-June to the end of June. I can't remember the exact.
Do you know what the typical time is for most students? Is it within a month, within 2, within 3? How does it work exactly?
I think that they suggest that you take it within a few months of graduation, just because you're studying for your finals and you're still in the mindset of I need to study to pass and do well on this exam. If you take too much time in between graduation and taking the NCLEX, I think it might be more difficult just to get yourself back to studying every day and really putting your whole self into that one thing. But I think for most students, they take it within 1 to 3 months after graduation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was the job that you got after as soon as you graduated, was that what you wanted? Wanted to be in the fellowship that, you knew that's.
Yeah. So I'll go back. When I was in my externship program, we had something called a wish day, which is kind of like you got to spend one shift on any unit in the hospital that you weren't assigned to. So my every day I was in labor and delivery and I was working with those nurses, but my wish day, I told them I was interested in the ICU. I wanted to see what it was like to be a nurse there also. So my wish day, I asked to be in the Cardiothoracic ICU, and I went and I shadowed a nurse. Her name was Fresh, and she was really incredible. I thought she was so intelligent. She really knew everything that was going on with her patient. She was communicating with providers on the floor, making changes to the patient's care. She was just fully involved and fully aware of the patient and what needed to be done in order to get them better and get them out of the ICU or on their way out of the ICU. So at that point I knew I wanted to work in the ICU, which is why I applied for my capstone in the CTU. So I was lucky enough to get a position for my capstone in the CTU. And then afterwards, because of my connections, I was able to work closely with management and with the fellowship program to apply, and I was able to get an interview and a position there ultimately. So it was exactly where I wanted to be. Obviously that doesn't happen for everyone, and that's okay. A lot of the nurses that I work with work in other units in the hospital, apply for the fellowship program, and then end up in the same position as me, just, you know, with different experience, which is really great. I think that having other experiences outside of like the unit that you want to work in is really valuable, because no matter where you are, learning how to be a nurse is like, you're gonna use whatever experience you have basically and bring it with you wherever you end up. So
What made you pursue Northwell over other like hospital organizations specifically?
So I knew I wanted to be on Long Island, and Northwell has a really big presence on Long Island. I worked in a Northwell hospital. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Long Island, but I worked at Mather Hospital. So I knew I wanted to work at Northwell because I had a really good experience with them as a nursing assistant. So I just think that they're a really great employer. That you can tell that they care about their nurses. A lot of their hospitals are magnet status, which is, you know, really just shows that the nurses are happy there and they retain their nurses. And I just think they do a really good job of caring for their employees and their patients. It's not all about the patients. It's, you know, making sure that your employees are happy, because employee satisfaction is really important with patient care outcomes. So the happier your nurses are and your providers are, the happier your patients will be as well. So I think Northwell does a really good job of that.
Cool. So, what would you say the best takeaway from Decker? What have you brought forward with you into your career?
Oh, there's so many things that I brought with me from Decker. They really give you an incredible foundation to work with when you're like first starting out as a nurse. I started out in a really like a high intensity, high stress unit. So for me, Decker, you know, taught me all the essentials, how to assess patients, how to prioritize your many tasks that you have to accomplish throughout the day. All the things that you learn while in Decker, like you're definitely going to use anywhere, like all the pharmacology and like just everything that you learn there, you're going to bring with you into the workplace. And obviously they can't, you know, give you patient assignments like while you're in clinical, like full patient assignments. You're not really going to know how to be a nurse like in full, because that's only something that you can learn once you're like on your own. But the foundation that they give you really prepares you to go out into the workplace and to provide safe and quality patient care, which you know, was wonderful.
Skills wise and knowledge wise, what do you think we should focus on growing before we graduate?
I think patient assessment is one of the most important skills that you can have. So really hone in on your assessment skills, know how to, I guess, acknowledge when something's not right and how to fix those things or how to address them. You're going to be working with an interdisciplinary team no matter what floor you work on. You'll work with physical therapists, respiratory therapists, providers, and assessing a patient and like using your knowledge of the body and like nursing in general, knowing what you know and being able to communicate when something's wrong is really important. So definitely focus on your assessment skills and on your communication skills as well, because those are really like the two most important things that you'll use, I think, on a day-to-day basis is your assessments and your ability to communicate with other people. Because if you're not advocating for your patients, there's only so many people that will, if that makes sense. Like you're at the bedside, you're seeing what's going on with the patient. So if something needs to change in that patient's care, you're the one that needs to communicate that with the rest of the team. So definitely working on your communication skills and your assessments for sure.
So what do you see yourself doing going forward? Like, do you see yourself doing more school? I don't know. Like, what do you see yourself doing for the rest of your life, I guess? And how do you know what you want to do for the rest of your life? Because I literally have no idea what I'm doing.
It's hard to decide for sure. So don't feel like bad that you don't know. Because honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I started out in a place that I'm really happy I had the opportunity to start in. Having the ICU experience really allows me to, apply to go back to school for certain programs, or I could say as a bedside nurse too. A lot of people do that as well. But for right now, I'm more interested in going back to school. For what? I'm not really sure yet. A lot of people that work in my unit go back for nurse anesthesia. So being a nurse anesthetist is really interesting. A lot of people go back for their nurse practitioner degree. But it depends on like what you want to do and like what you want your scope of practice to be. So still trying to figure that out. But as of right now, I think I'd like to go back and be a CRNA. I really like working with patients at the bedside, but I really love the idea of having like total control of like what's going on with the patient. So like when you're a CRNA, you work in the OR with the patient, you're in control of their anesthesia, waking them up, putting them to sleep, maintaining safety throughout the operation. And so I think that's really interesting. But as of right now, I'm still working on becoming, the best nurse that I can for my patients. I want to make sure that I'm good at being a nurse before I'm anything else, if that makes sense. Over the past 2 years of being a nurse, I've grown a lot, more than I could have imagined. And even after you graduate, you think that you know so much, and you'll see that you learn even more once you start working on the floor. So, there's still more growing for me to do before I decide to move on, I think, because I just got trained to be a charge nurse on the floor. So learning how to, be charge nurse and help all my other coworkers, and I'm getting involved in different initiatives on my floor. Basically, I'm like part of the Collaborative Care Council. So that focuses on like communicating with nurses on the floor and seeing where they see we can improve our unit. So where we can improve nurse satisfaction, basically. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of things to consider when deciding like whether or not you want to go back to school or whether you want to stay a bedside nurse. Like, it really depends on you and your goals personally. There's pros and cons to every position, but it's definitely difficult. So don't like be hard on yourself that you don't know what to do right now, because it definitely takes time. And I think your experiences will allow you to really understand like what would be best for you in the future.
That's fair. Are you part of any nursing organizations, and does it make any sense to join one? Should you join one that's close to your specialty, or should you join a more general one? I'm still kind of confused about that.
Yeah, so I'm a part of the Association for Critical Care Nurses, the American Association for Critical Care Nurses. It's good because it gives you an opportunity to participate in the like in nursing as a career as a whole. So you'll be able to see different journals and really follow up on like evidence-based practice. You'll be able to stay like updated and current with that. Also, it allows you to take certification exams. So I recently took my critical care registered nurse exam. So I'm certified in critical care now. And that's through the AACN. So I think it's important to join organizations that you know, are relevant to your specialty, and also to get certified and all that jazz, just because it really shows that you're improving yourself as a nurse and as a professional. You want to always continue to grow and continue to learn, because nursing is ever changing. We're learning new things every day, and you want to make sure that you're providing the best care to your patients. So definitely like staying relevant, staying updated is important, and those organizations make it a little bit easier to do that.
Makes sense. Does it cost anything?
There is a fee to be a member. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the fee is, but it's like a yearly subscription.
Okay.
But obviously you get access to different journals. Like there's perks to it. Like you get access to journals, you can go to different conferences. Obviously right now, like most of them are online, so you won't be like attending any conferences, but you can do that virtually. You can also get discounts on certification exams. Like if you're a member versus a non-member, it might cost a little bit more for a non-member to take certification exams. But there's different things that they offer you in exchange for the fee that you're paying. So.
Makes sense. Is there anything besides the CCRN that you can get certified in? Does it go past that?
There's a lot of certification exams that you can do. The next one that I'm working on that's specific to my specialty is the cardiac surgery certification. There's also cardiac medicine. There's the progressive care certification exam. There's ones for pediatrics. There's plenty of certification exams for every specialty. So.
Cool. So wait. How do I phrase this question? So I'm sure the past few years for you have been like super hard. So how do you take care of yourself, and like what do you do on your days off?
That's a good question. So COVID was definitely challenging. I had gotten off of orientation shortly before everything got bad, and that the hospital that I was working with, really started seeing a lot of admissions. COVID related. So it wasn't too long before I was working with COVID patients, and it was difficult. Our ratios were a little bit higher than normal, and I was working in ICUs that were not typical, if that makes sense. Like they were kind of makeshift ICUs. But it was a really good learning experience. And although like my days on were challenging, my days off, I tried to focus on, reflecting on good things that happened during my shift, and doing other things that I enjoy, like hanging out with my family, and, just exercising, eating well, like just taking care of your, not only your mind, but your body as well. So I try to do those things on my days off, find other things outside of work that like are fulfilling and just like make you feel good. So that's kind of like
talk
what I
about
do.
your schedule. I know you said you work nights, but do you work like 3 on 3 off?
So a lot of, or at least my unit, I should speak for my unit. We're able to make our own schedule. So you have to work a certain number of weekends. For my unit, I work 2 Fridays, 2 Saturdays, and 2 Sundays every scheduling period. So essentially it's like 2 weekends out of the month I'm working. And obviously if we're well staffed, they'll try to adjust that so we're not working so many weekend days. But I work 3 nights a week. I do 12-hour shifts, and every month essentially I work a 4th day to make up for the 4 hours. So I work 36 hours a week, and that extra 4th day every month makes up for the 4 hours that make it full time. I really like the 12-hour shifts. I personally would definitely not want to work 8-hour shifts, because 8 hours you're working 5 days a week. But there are some units that do 8-hour shifts. There are some units that do 10-hour shifts. So you'll, instead of working 3 12s, you'll work 4 10s. So it really depends on like the unit that you work in. But as of right now, I'm doing 3 12s. It's nice though that if you wanted to, like, you could find a unit that has a different schedule if you're looking for something else. So there's a lot of variety.
Do you have any plans to pursue travel nursing at all?
Personally, no, I don't. But I do know some individuals that have pursued travel nursing, especially like in the past year. I definitely recommend getting experience prior to travel nursing. So getting used to being a nurse and like really nail down your skills and your feel comfortable doing the job before you do travel nursing. Because obviously you're going to be working with people that you don't know and providers that you don't know. So you just want to make sure that you're able to provide like safe patient care before you do that. But travel nursing is a really great opportunity. Obviously there's a large like financial incentive because if you're taking crisis assignments, you're going somewhere where they really need the help. But for me, just like lifestyle wise, I have a house, so I'm staying here. I'm not leaving, but
Fair enough.
travel nursing really is very cool, especially like if you want to see the country. It's a great gig. My friends left New York, they're going to California, and hopefully they're going to Hawaii next. So there's a lot of opportunity to see different places. You obviously still have the same schedule. I mean, depending on your assignment and your contract. But having 3 days on and being able to explore those other 4 days, like it's pretty amazing. So, but personally, no, I'm not gonna be pursuing travel nursing, at least right now.
How does overtime work for you, and do you pick up a lot of it?
It depends on your unit a lot of times, like if there's overtime available. For my unit, being that, you know, sometimes we have add-on surgery cases or an emergency comes in, there is a lot of opportunity for overtime. Personally, I'll pick up overtime. If I'm working 3 days, I wouldn't pick up if I'm working 4 days, but that's just because I'm working nights. So I like to have, you know, 2 or 3 days off in between stretches, just so I'm not sleeping at like weird times. So I usually will pick up overtime shifts occasionally, but there's other opportunities for overtime that I don't do on my unit. Like right now, there's a lot of opportunity to do vaccine shifts through Northwell. They have a flex staff agency, so they'll send out emails if they need people to work vaccine shifts or swabbing shifts. That's another popular one right now. So those are like other opportunities that I've been looking at as well. But there are some people that pick up a lot of overtime. I think it's easier if you're working days, personally, but for nights, I'll only pick up every once in a while, but there is overtime available for my shift at least, or for my unit, I should say. I think it really depends, because if you have a pretty steady census on your unit, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for overtime. But if you have a census that fluctuates a lot and they need more people one night than they do the next, there's usually opportunity for overtime.
How important was networking and connections in terms of your job search as a new grad?
For me, I would say it was important. Obviously, no matter where you are, you want to make sure that you're making a good impression. You want to make good connections. I think relationships are really important no matter where you are. But especially when you're looking for jobs, like if you know someone or you know a manager or you've had experience in a unit and you want to reach out to them, they're more likely to answer you or to, give you the opportunity to shadow or to come in and interview if they know what type of nurse you are, or what type of person you are. So for me, I did my capstone in the CTU, so I was able to meet the manager and to really showcase my skills and the type of person that I was and the type of worker that I was during my capstone. So that I think helped me during my application process when I reached out and told them that I was interested in a position. But I think it's definitely important. If you ever meet someone or like have an interview with someone, I think it's important to reach out after the interview and, you know, say thank you for the opportunity and just continue to express your interest. And you know, it's good to be persistent as well, because a lot of these places will have, you know, a job posting. So reaching out via email, they might get a lot of emails. So if you don't get a response, you can definitely try to give them a call and continue to express your interests and, you know, show them that you are really working hard and like that you want the position, if that makes sense. Because there's I just think that's important. And as a recruiter, I think that if I saw someone reaching out and calling and making sure that like I knew that they were interested, I think I would be more likely to call that person back and give them the opportunity to come in and interview.
So what would be your like one piece of advice for finishing off the last semester of nursing school?
That's hard. I think definitely like enjoy your time in school, as stressful as it is when you're graduating and trying to find a job. Just know that it's going to work out no matter where you end up getting a job. If it's not the place you really want to start out, it's okay. And there's always opportunity to move, essentially. Make sure that you are studying for your NCLEX and putting the time in that is necessary in order to pass, because it's definitely stressful, but if you put the time in, you should be okay, because, you know, Decker really prepares you for the NCLEX and to do well. That's more than one piece of advice, but definitely just like make sure you're having fun and not stressing so much, because I was definitely very stressed my last semester of nursing school, very worried about finding a job. And pretty much everyone that I graduated with, you know, they were employed very shortly after graduation, after passing the NCLEX. So it'll be okay. The world needs nurses, especially now. So
that's for sure.
Yeah.
How doable is it, in your opinion, to work on one unit and pick up shifts in another unit if you were interested in picking up shifts there?
I think it depends on the unit that you work in. So if you're working in a high stress, like high intensity environment, like in an ICU or something like that, I think it'd probably be a little bit more difficult to, you know, pick up on your days off. Because sometimes you just want your days off and you need your days off to just be like not stressful. You're like doing what makes you happy. But there are people that pick up like I was saying, there's opportunities through flex staff. So not necessarily like a per diem position or like where you're contracted with another unit. It's kind of like wherever the hospital system needs nurses, they'll have an opportunity for you to pick up like a shift here and there. With per diem contracts, it's, you know, you're required to work a certain number of days every month. So I know nurses that have done it where they work the 3 days and then they work a per diem shift at another unit. But I think it really is up to you. Like if that's what you want, then you'll definitely make it work, because obviously like the 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts does leave you with quite a few days to to do with whatever really you please. So if you wanted another job, you could, but for me personally, like, I think the full time is enough. And, you know, when I have the time and the energy, I'll pick up a flex staff here and there, and not have to be worried about, you know, making sure that I fulfill the 4 days or 4 shifts a month. So yeah, it is doable, but it's just, I think it would probably be a lot to make sure that you're fulfilling all the responsibilities for each unit. And when it comes to like holidays and stuff like that, units have different requirements. Like you have to work for my unit, you have to work an even a day. So Thanksgiving Eve and Christmas Day, or Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve, or New Year's also, there's requirements. So I think it would be a little bit difficult to juggle if you had 2 units that you were working on, unless like management was aware and you had like a conversation with them that, you know, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to make sure that I fulfill my requirements on both sides. And if they're willing to like work with you on a schedule that, you know, allows you to do both, that's great, but you just have to be careful, I think.
Okay, that's nice. I wasn't sure if there was anything else besides per diem. I was worried about getting locked into something like that, but if there's something like flex staff, that would definitely help me out a bit. In terms of building out your resume, is there anything else you can do besides certification? Well, would volunteering be useful? What type of experiences will be useful if you're looking to get a job somewhere else, or if you're looking to get another job once, you know, you spend a year getting experience?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I just redid my resume, and I still had everything on there from like college, and I was talking to my educator on my unit, and, you know, I wanted to keep a lot of things from college on my resume because I was like, oh, it's so full. Like I've done all these things. Like I want to showcase that I've done all of this, but when it comes to like applying for, you know, jobs, once you've been a nurse for a little while, I think they focus more on like your nursing experience and the skills that you have like on the unit that you're working on. You can also do certifications, include those on your resumes. You can include like BLS, ACLS, PALS. If you've done any like continuing education courses, you obviously include like your education. So writing where you got your degree, and if you have any other degrees. But other than that, I think those are like the most important things. Like volunteering, you can also include if you volunteer somewhere. If you do clinical ladder at your hospital, if that's something that's available to you, it shows that you've tried to continue to improve yourself as a nurse. There's different requirements for different hospital systems, and there's different levels. So those are really good things to include on your resume. You can also get involved in different groups on your unit. So my unit has like a journal club where you go and you can either share or just attend, and you could share like different academic articles that you've researched, and that's one way you can get involved. Another thing that we have in my unit is collaborative care council, where we basically discuss like any concerns or you know, issues that nurses are having on the unit in order to improve nurse satisfaction. What else do we have? There's opportunities to basically create different like pamphlets and stuff with the education department to educate people. So we deal with a lot of like devices on my unit, like balloon pumps, impellas, ECMO. So we basically make education or educational pamphlets or like posters and stuff and share that with your coworkers on the unit, just to make sure that everyone is like updated and aware of, you know, the different like requirements when working with each of those devices. So there's a lot of different ways like you can get involved on your unit, and you can include those things on your resume as well, but it's definitely different from like a student resume. Like you're not going to include like all the clubs that you were in and stuff. Instead of those clubs, you can include like the different groups that you're in, like on your unit or something like that, if that makes any
Okay.
sense.
That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Emily, do you think it's important to have a mentor in your unit?
I think so. So I did a fellowship program, and I had a orientation where I worked with a preceptor, and that my preceptor is really like my mentor now. Obviously, like all the more senior nurses, you can always look to them for help and advice, especially because like you want to make sure you're providing the best care to your patients. So if you need help as a new grad nurse, like it's okay. So always ask questions like the more senior nurses, or you can always look to like your education department. But for me, like I worked with that one person who was my preceptor, and they were so willing and so helpful always, even after orientation, making sure that you're like I was okay and seeing if I needed any help. So I think it's nice to have that person because it's definitely an adjustment, like learning to be a nurse. You definitely, for me, I was overwhelmed at times, learning to balance everything during your shift and prioritize. And so it's nice to have someone that you know you can rely on. But for me, or for my unit, I should say, there's definitely like a really good support system. Like all the nurses are, for the most part, pretty young, and they all came through the fellowship program, so they all know what it's like to start out as a new graduate in like that environment. And so everyone's pretty willing to like help and make sure that you're okay. And if you need anything or have any questions, they're open to answering those for you. But it's definitely nice to have at least one person that you know you can trust, if not anybody.
What's the fellowship process like exactly? Because is it a year-long thing? And what do you do exactly?
So the fellowship program was 3 phases. We did a didactic portion, we did hands-on, and we did like patient simulation. So the first phase was mostly didactic, learning about the different devices that would be working with on the floor, doing a lot of like kind of like iLearns. I don't know if you guys have done anything like that before, but it's basically like online education and taking like exams, stuff like that. Second phase, you're working with a preceptor, and you're on the floor doing your 3 nights a week, but you always have that person with you on your assignment. So if you need assistance, they're there to help you, and they should be educating you. And then during the third phase, you're on your own, but education and your preceptor are still there for you. But you're taking your own patient assignments. So that's kind of like you going off on your own. But during the didactic phase, like we would go to the simulation center, we would, you know, go through different scenarios with the simulator, kind of like we would do at Decker. And you learn how to handle different situations, learn how to give report, you learn how to communicate with providers, stuff like that. So the fellowship is really great. And I think if you have the opportunity to do something like that, I would recommend it. But yeah, that was kind of like the setup of the fellowship. And then afterwards, you are committed for 24 months to that unit that you started in, just so that they could, the fellowship program obviously costs money for the hospital. So it's kind of like you giving back to them, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. They're trying to get their return on the investment that they put in, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
Emily, you spoke about learning to be a nurse kind of throughout the last 45 minutes. What are some takeaways you learned the last 2 years about being a nurse?
It's a lot more than just like completing tasks and learning to become really good at skills. You're caring for a real person who's in a, like, could be one of the most difficult moments of their life, especially in the ICU. I take care of a lot of really, really sick people. So learning to become like sensitive and learning how to communicate in a way that's like empathetic, and it's difficult to balance like the task side of things with the compassionate, like human side of things, if that makes sense, because you want to make sure that like not only you're getting everything done for the patient that you need to and like giving their medications and stuff like that, but you want to be educating them and supporting them and just like making sure that you're caring for their whole self rather than just their physical self, because it's so much more than just like giving medications and stuff like that. It's making sure that they feel supported and that their family feels supported throughout their time at the hospital. So when you first start, it's you kind of feel like you have a checklist of things and you're like very task oriented and you're trying to get all your work done. And then as you get used to the flow of things, it becomes more of like, okay, now I can do all these tasks, but also like I'm working on like helping these people like emotionally and making sure that their physical being is okay, but also like their mental and their emotional being is okay too. So it's fun. I love being a nurse. It's definitely difficult at times, and you find yourself like emotionally invested in these patients or like taking care of them. But it's pretty amazing being able to watch someone from, being on complete life support to like walking out of our unit to go to like our step down unit. It's pretty amazing. So
We have a few more minutes. Any other questions?
do you guys know where you want to work at? Do you guys have any idea of like what kind of nursing you want to do, or?
I want to work in the emergency department. I'm an aide in UHS Wilson right now in the ER, and I love it. I don't think there's any other unit that I'd like to work on, but I am considering ICUs too. They seem similar enough that I can be in that type of environment. But I think the ER is still very distinct from intensive care units.
Yeah, it definitely is very distinct, and it's a really cool place to work. Personally, I don't think it's funny because, ICU and ED, like you're taking care of like acute patients in ED just like you are upstairs in the ICU, but like I like to know what's coming in. Like if I'm getting an admission, I like to know what's going on. For you guys downstairs, it's like so great that you're able to like be on your toes and like figuring
Right.
things out and like trying to like see what's actually going on with the patients when they first come in. So props to you. That's exciting. And that's really good experience that you have like in the ED as a nursing like a nursing assistant. So definitely that will help you like when you're applying for jobs and stuff. Northwell has an emergency department fellowship, so you should definitely apply.
I actually have already at Lennox Hill. I attended the Golden Ticket event for both years, so hopefully that'll help. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens on that end.
Yeah, I did the Golden Ticket too, so that's great. How about you, Alyssa?
So I thought I wanted to be in the ER, because my capstone is in the ER at Cayuga here, like in Ithaca, and I'm a PCT at Lourdes in the emergency room there, but I don't know, it's kind of a lot. I feel like that's like kind of a lot as a new grad. But I also really love peds. I was at NYU this past summer. I did my externship in the pediatric ICU. So
nice.
I really like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of figuring out what I'm doing with my life. Not really sure yet though.
That's okay.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome. Props to you. I don't think I could do peds. It's
a lot of people are like that, I guess.
it definitely takes like a very special individual to do that. So
Yeah,
good for you.
I like the kids and I actually do like the families. Like, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was one other person here, right? Did they leave?
This was
Yeah, she left.
yeah,
Okay.
this was good. Yeah, we have a test today, so I'm gonna study. But thank you for your time. It was so nice
Yep.
to meet you.
Yeah, of
Thanks a
course.
lot.
And if you guys, I'm on LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out to me on there
I'm a
or
big LinkedIn fiend, so you'll be getting a request from me.
yeah, request me. And if you ever want to like reach out to me, I'd be happy to like help in any way I can with like the job application process. Or if you guys have any other questions, just let me know. Okay.
Sure.